What if flip decks were good again? Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode we're talking about Mimighoul. It's not technically new at this point, but I was away when it came out and I really did want to play this deck and finally got a chance to actually record some replays for you. But this is the deck list that we ended up coming up with, and if you don't know what Mimighoul does, let me just quickly explain it. If the opponent activates Impulse, you lose. That's it. And the reason for this is because what you actually do with these cards is you give them to your opponent, and then you flip them on their turn in order to do terrible things to the opponent. Like for example, if this card in the main phase, if it is the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Destroy all face-up cards except for Mimighoul monsters you control, and give control of this card to your opponent. So basically what this means is that you would flip this up on the opponent's turn, then it would trigger nuking the entire field, and then giving it back to you. Hooray! It's pretty cool. Now, Dragon also has another effect where on summon it searches a spell trap, which is pretty nice, and during the main phase, all of the monsters have this text. You can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's side of the field in face down defense position. On top of that, both Slime and Fairy have the additional effect where instead of on summon doing a thing, they have the ability to summon themselves to your side of the field, which matters a lot for the Xe monsters, which we'll get into later. We also have Archfiend as well, which is another fairly decent card, which does the same thing, except for it draws you a card, because your opponent would be the one who has this, which then, if the opponent has it, and your opponent, which is your opponent's opponent, which is you, draws a card, you draw a card. That also forces them to then send a card from their hand to the grave, which notably, if they can't send a card, I don't know if this would apply, because it forces them to send a card to the grave, so if like it would be banished, I don't know if this would apply. Don't ask me about that, it never came up. Anyway, but then also, you, of course, give control of this. On top of that, if it is normal or special summoned, you can change a face-down monster on the field to face-up attack position or defense position. Now, notably, there's one other card that actually does matter with its flip effect, which is Slime, where your opponent special summons a Mimighoul monster from their deck to their field, which is just a free summon. So generally, what you can do with this is that if you go something like Maker, which reveals 2 flip monsters with different names, your opponent gets to pick one that they special to your to their field, and you get the other one to your hand, and then you get a special summon of Mimighoul from hand. So what you can do with this is if you go Maker, select Slime and Archfiend, granted it is random, but if they get Slime and you search the Archfiend, you can normal summon or special summon the Archfiend. Archfiend flips Slime, Slime then activates, forcing you to get an additional guy, which then you can special summon Dragon, and Dragon can search out another spell trap. It's very, very useful, and it's very nice, and it never happened. You just have to hit the 50-50, and I never hit it. So it was kind of tragic. But that being said, that is something that you could do, which is pretty cool. On top of that, we also have the second effect of Maker, which is also very nice, which says, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can banish this card from your grave in order to then target a face-down monster your opponent controls, and change it to face-up attack or defense position, which is pretty nice. So basically, if you use Maker, you basically also have the ability to trigger your Mimighoul monsters, which is also fairly decent. However, there's one other guy that also does stuff, which is Master, who also has the ability on the opponent's turn during the main phase to flip a face-down monster to face-up attack or defense position, which is also fairly good because it triggers all of those effects. However, on top of that, on normal or special summon, you can add a Mimighoul monster, and it cannot be destroyed, and also has if you control Mimighouls, and that's pretty much it. Or if your opponent controls face-down monsters. So it has some protection, it has a search effect, and then of course it has the ability to flip up, which is fairly decent. Now there's one other Mimighoul card, there's 2 other Mimighoul cards. There's the Dungeon as well, and then of course the Room. We also have Fairy, which we talked about. This effect doesn't really matter too much. It's mostly used to special summon itself. So there's that. But we have Dungeon as well, which is a field spell that says Mimighoul monsters that you control that were not normal or special summon this turn, gain attack equal to their original defense. So just boost them, which is pretty nice. On top of that, any player who controls a face-down monster cannot normal summon monsters, nor declare an attack with monsters that were special summoned this turn, meaning if you force them to have a face-down monster and they can't really get rid of it, then they can't normal summon, nor do they have the ability to attack with special summon monsters, which is fairly decent. But then on top of that, this is actually what it's mostly been used for, at least for me, which is during the main phase, add a Mimighoul monster from deck or grave to hand, which is very nice. Not only does it grab from deck, but it also grabs from grave, which is cool, because then you can grab back your one master. We're only playing the one because we're playing a whole bunch of other stuff, as you can see. We also have a Mimighoul room, which special summons a Mimighoul and then flips a guy face up, or, special summons either from hand or deck to the field, in either face down defense position on your opponent's field or to your field, and then also you can change a monster to face down defense position. So there you go, it's pretty decent. You could even potentially book one of the monsters that has already been flipped face up, so there's that. But then on top of that, you can banish it from the grave and then target any number of Mimighoul monsters you control and return them to the hand, which is just a way to like return your these guys to then put them back onto the opponent's side of the field, which is pretty nice. And that's pretty much it for the Mimighoul stuff. We're also playing, of course, Fiendsmith as well as Kashtira. Kashtira happens to play very well with this due to the fact that you don't really like you don't use your own monsters all that well, but also it triggers their the Kashtiras would also trigger off of your own monsters, so there's that. And it's just like a free body, right? So that's mostly what it's been used for. This is also just pretty much card for card the deck list that Jesse Cotton used as well. So if you're wondering why some of the individual cards are in here, ask him. I don't know. He basically made the deck list. I think I changed a thrust for a crossout, and that was it. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the deck list. Not much else to talk about. The extra deck, the most important things are Giant Mimighoul, which searches a Mimighoul card on Xyz Summon and also can detach to pop cards, which is pretty cool, inflict damage. And then also Throne, which special summons a Master as well as equips a 2-Master to give it some protection and boosts its attack, which is pretty nice. That's pretty much it. So let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alright, so here we are going first, and this is a very Mimighoul hand. Let's see what we can accomplish with this. We're going to start off here with Maker, and it's going to be promptly met with Ash, to the which I will actually call by. I do have Ash, and I'm worried about Max C, but I'm like, they would Max C this, and I would just get the Ash here, and it's fine. That being said, I really do want this to resolve, and you'll see why in a second. So, Maker is going to activate, and I'm going to reveal Slime, and Archfiend, and of course, they get the Archfiend and I get the Slime. Now, it's not the worst because we still have the ability to then special summon Dragon here. So Dragon's effect is going to activate, and we're going to add the Dungeon here. I could have also added Room, but I think Dungeon is a little bit better here because we can grab up the Master. So we're going to then normal summon Master. Master is going to grab Fairy, and we're going to special summon Fairy to our side of the field. Here we can just go into Moon, and then promptly get met by Nibiru. It's not great, but I'm going to give them Slime, and then I'm just going to keep the Archfiend in hand. There's not really a reason for me to give them the Archfiend. This may seem very strange, but the simple fact of the matter is having Archfiend for follow-up is also fairly nice, and if they already have Slime and Dragon, there's not really a point to give them another guy. So, yeah, I feel like this is probably our best option. And, like, again, Archfiend's not really going to do anything. It's Kashtira. Now, notably, I do have Dungeon, which means they can't normal summon. So they're going to actually just tribute set their Kashtira. They also activate Clockwork Knight, which is maybe one of the strangest cards that I have seen, but it's also a card that I have seen in Kashtira multiple times. So there you go. But that's pretty much it. Now, we still kind of have stuff that we can do. Luckily, we do still have Dungeon, which is not a on activation search. It is just a during the main phase. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, we're just going to grab up Master from the grave, which grabs up the Dragon here, and then we're going to special summon it to the opponent's side of the field, the Archfiend, as well as the Dragon again. So more cards face down, and we do have Master as well. Now, I could have potentially, well, no, sorry, I couldn't have potentially searched anything there because we have Fairy and Slime currently in grave, so we couldn't have actually grabbed up one of those off of Master because it only searches from the deck. Now, they activate Shifter here, which is very cute because I don't actually care. So we're going to flip up the Dragon here. They're going to then chain the Fenris off of the Master effect, and away goes my field spell, which is fine because away goes their entire board. They, I think, realized the fact that they would have to discard a card in order to do anything there, and I would get to draw a card. And also, my Ash Blossom is online. That being said, that's the only thing that's online. So there is potential that that doesn't really do anything. But alas, they decide to scoop there. I think they thought their board was still going to stick around. I don't think they realized how those cards worked, but alas, good game, I guess. All right, so here we are going second, and this is, again, very Mimighoul heavy hand. And my opponent is also playing Kashtira. Oh no! But that's okay. Luckily, we have the Ash Blossom here for this Theosis, so hopefully we're not just immediately cooked here. They're going to then add the Arise Heart. Arise Heart is then going to special summon itself and activate the effect. And then, yep, they banish some of my cards. Out comes Shanghai Era. They're going to set 2 and pass the turn. I'm feeling pretty good here. We can just, like, normal summon Dragon and kind of get off to the races here. So we're going to normal summon the Dragon, which will probably be met by Imperm. Not too surprising in any capacity there. But out comes the Unicorn. They're going to banish, of course, Desiree. Not exactly what I was expecting, but I guess. But I decided to go Fuko here. Now, the reason for this is very simple. Yeah, it's this guy. Now, I'm not playing Downard. I don't know if Downard would be better than anything particular in this extra deck. Maybe like a... Maybe... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a few things here or there that it might be better than... but for the most part, it wasn't really worth it. They also decided to just banish their card face down instead of just having it go to grave, so that's good. Anyway, I figured this was... I actually thought it was gonna be the continuous trap, but because they banished the ogre, so I was like, oh, maybe it's the continuous trap. But at this point, we just get to give them the Archfiend, and I get to set room. And at this point, the game is basically over. I gave them a guy. They don't really have any follow-up, and I get to go for Moon here, or Room here, which books their guy as well, and flips up the other guy, forcing the last card out of their hand. So that was very, very good for me. And yeah, there you go. Good game. All right, now what if we don't play against Kashtira? This one is not against Kashtira. To be fair, that first deck was actually a Fiendsmith deck, more so than it was a Kashtira, but they still mostly saw their Kashtira cards. Regardless, we're going to start off here with the dungeon and then normal summon the dragon, which will probably be met by Valor, and I am now just sad. Now, I could have normal summoned the Lacrima there, but the reason I wanted to do this is because at the very least we get to our Mimighoul stuff, and honestly, I think that's a little bit stronger than just doing the Fiendsmith line, and also, yeah, I'm fairly certain they have, like, Ash Blossom, so I don't think this does anything, and yeah, I was correct, so... sad. But at the very least, now they don't have Ash Blossom for the Maxi. Hip hip hooray. Hooray! That's pretty much all that we're hoping for here. We're going to Maxi, and my opponent is going to go and reveal that they are on Life Twin. So, fairly good Maxi. They're going to go into the Kiss Kill here, and then just pass on that, going to the battle phase and walking over our XZ. And, yeah, now we just get to do full Fiendsmith combo. I did draw Birth, which is also very funny, and then, of course, the second Maxi. You'll love to see it. I'm going to start off here with the dungeon. My opponent is then going to special summon out one of their guys, like that's A-okay. We're going to go for the dragon once again for the normal summon, and then we're going to go for Maker. We're going to reveal Slime and Archfiend, and gosh dang it, once again, it's fine, it's fine. Out comes the Slime, and we're then going to immediately go into Gigante. Gigante is going to activate its effect and promptly be met by a Droplet, which I gave them a free resource for. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with this use of Droplet, but yeah, I don't know. It always feels bad Dropletting for one. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're just going to do full Fiendsmith combo here. So, out comes the Lurie. Lurie is then going to go into the Requiem, and Requiem into yada yada. Now, I do know, hey, you could play this without the Fiendsmith stuff, you could play this without the Kashtira stuff, but I also enjoy playing optimized decks that are specifically designed to be just like anything, not just be the deck itself. That being said, Mimighoul also doesn't really do a whole lot outside of just, I mean, very, very little. I also think I could have potentially OTK'd here. I just couldn't figure it out, so I just did this instead. So I go Agnum Day. We shuffle back this to send the Sunny Snitch, and then we go and equip the Desiree with the Agnum Day. I originally was thinking, oh, I'm going to go SP Little Knight and something else, and Desiree. But I eventually realized, oh, I can make Zeus here, which is actually really strong here. So that's what I ended up doing, which is why I didn't go Agnum Day prior. But it's fine. Anyway, they go for the Harpies, Feather Duster, I go for the Desiree, and yeah, that, I believe, is the game. They scoop it up. Maxi, Hip Hip Hooray, and Fiendsmith, Hip Hip Hooray. Good game. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, Mimighoul doesn't really do anything if there isn't something to go into in the extra deck. It kind of does stuff, but your opponent could just flip up their cards, and then, like, that is an option. Unless you draw, like, very specific cards. So, for the most part, I really feel like it's just better to have an additional thing to do, and Fiendsmith happens to be that thing. Kashtira is just, like, a strong deck with this anyway. So, there's that. Because you just give your opponent cards. Anyway, my opponent is also playing Mimighoul, and, well, yeah, that's all. I just wanted to show you this. This game's pretty over. So, there you go. I think they scoop up here, yeah. So, Mimighoul. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, right? Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, this deck is still fairly boring. I'm not gonna lie. The Mimighoul stuff actually doesn't do all that much by itself, and even with that being said, if it were to do something, it's not all that interesting. It kind of is just reliant on the opponent, and because a lot of people are playing things like Droplet, a lot of people are playing things like, you know, the myriad of ways to just, like, send cards for free, and also just none of these effects are all that impactful nowadays. Like, Dragon is, but Slime doesn't really do anything, Fairy doesn't really do anything, or even Archfiend isn't really all that big of a deal unless you draw into hand traps, which, like, we could play a bit more of, to be fair, but also it doesn't really matter because the likelihood of us drawing specifically off of this one guy, I mean, it's more the fact that you force the opponent to send a card, right? But overall, like, again, the cards aren't exactly doing a whole lot, right? At least by themselves. They do have the ability to pivot, obviously, into Fiendsmith, and the ability to pivot into Zeus, which is nice, but overall, they're fairly bland and not really all that. I don't want to be negative, because they do something fairly interesting. It's just that there's not a lot of it. I wish they had more actual points of interaction, because most of the time, it's like Archfiend ends up kind of being your best guy to give to them, because it's basically a guaranteed interaction, whereas if the opponent just, like, flips up Dragon, which they oftentimes can just do that, then nothing happens, and you just get the Dragon back, and it's like, oh, okay. Whereas, like, Archfiend, at the very least, you get a card, and the opponent sends a card. But that's kind of, like, it. There's not really any other things that matter in this. So, like, they could literally just flip up all of your guys, and then there you go. There are your guys. Which is a little sad, but what can you do? That's where you, like, use Room to give them Dragon, and then blow up the field with the Master as well. It's, like, your best option. But yeah, even outside of that, it's not really all that consistent. And I wish it was. I love the idea of Mimighoul. And I really wish that I enjoyed it more than I do. Because it's such a cool concept. And maybe if I play a deck that doesn't rely on Fiendsmith and Kashtira, I'd probably enjoy it more, to be fair. But, with that being said, this deck still needs 1 to 2 additional guys that do something. That's it. That's all. I just, they don't really do enough. Armor is, like, okay. Right? This turn, Mimighoul monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. That's all it does. I mean, it's another free guy, but, like, that's it. I really wish that this deck had more So, that's all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.